There are moments in life that change everything. A decision, a chance meeting, a single word spoken at just the right time. This story starts with a man who walked into a car dealership looking for something special. Not flashy, not loud, just perfect. He had a quiet confidence about him, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything. His name, Dell Curry. You might not know the name off the top of your head, but you've definitely heard of his son. Yes, that Curry. But back then, before the championships, before the fame, before millions knew his name, there was just Dell, a former NBA player, a father, a man who still loved cars. And on this particular day, he walked into a high-end dealership in Charlotte, North Carolina, looking to upgrade his ride. Now most people walk into a luxury car lot, hoping to impress the salesperson. But this time, it was the other way around. The salesman saw Dell, took one look, and thought he had the whole thing figured out. After all, Dell wasn't dressed like a star. No flashy clothes, no entourage, just a guy with a calm smile and a soft voice. And so, the salesman made a mistake. A big one. He laughed. Not at Dell. Oh no, at what Dell wanted. You see, Dell didn't ask for the latest model or the fastest car on the lot. He asked for something specific, something that, to the salesman, sounded strange. And when he said it out loud, the salesman couldn't help himself. He chuckled, then smirked, then said the words that would come back to haunt him. I don't think that's for someone like you. It was supposed to be a quick sale, a simple transaction. But instead, it turned into one of the most unforgettable moments in car dealership history. Because just as Dell was walking away, phone in hand, resigned to being underestimated once again, someone else walked in. Tall, confident, smiling, and suddenly, the room changed. Because standing in the doorway, wearing a hoodie and jeans, was none other than Stephen Curry. The salesman froze. His smile dropped. He didn't say a word. He just stared. Stephen looked at his dad, then at the salesman, then slowly, calmly, he said, "Let's talk about that car." Dell Curry wasn't always known as Stephen Curry's dad. Before that, he was a player in his own right, someone who carved out a solid career in the NBA, even if he never made an all-star team or won a championship. He played for over a decade, mostly with the Charlotte Hornets, where he became one of the league's best shooters long before three-pointers ruled the game. He wore number 30, moved quietly on and off the court, and earned respect from teammates and fans alike. But when he retired, life didn't suddenly become easy. Like many former athletes, Dell had to figure out what came next. So he stayed close to basketball. He worked as a broadcaster, he mentored young players, and most importantly, he raised two sons, Seth and Stephen, both of whom would follow him into the sport. But while Seth and Stephen grew up around the game, they also grew up watching their dad work hard, stay humble, and never expect anything to be handed to them. That's just who Dell was. And that's why, years later, when he walked into that dealership looking for a specific car, it wasn't about showing off. It wasn't about flexing or trying to live large. It was about comfort, about something he had driven before, and loved. You see, Dell liked older models, not because he couldn't afford new ones, but because he knew how to take care of a car. He believed in value, in quality, in things that lasted. So when he walked into that luxury dealership in Charlotte, he already had a model in mind, something reliable, something elegant, something he could drive for years without worry. He walked up to the front desk, greeted the salesman, and said exactly what he wanted. Now let's be clear, this wasn't some outdated junker. This was a luxury sedan, well-maintained, still in great condition. The kind of car people buy second-hand, because it still has years of life left in it. But to the salesman, Dell didn't look like someone who should be asking for that kind of car. Maybe it was the way he dressed. Maybe it was the way he spoke. Maybe it was just a snap judgment, the kind we all make sometimes, whether we mean to or not. Whatever it was, the moment Dell said what he was looking for, the salesman smiled, then laughed, then said, "I don't think that's for someone like you." Dell didn't get angry. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at the man, gave a polite nod, and started walking away, because he'd heard it before. He'd been underestimated his whole life. As a player, as a father, as a man, he knew what it felt like to be judged by appearances instead of actions. But he also knew something else. Sometimes, the moment you walk away is the moment everything changes, and that's exactly what happened. Because just as Dell stepped outside, phone in hand, ready to call someone else, maybe his son, maybe another dealership, he heard the door open again. And then he heard footsteps, familiar ones. He turned around, and there, standing in the doorway, was Stephen. Stephen Curry walked in like he always did, calm, confident, with that same quiet energy his dad had. No flash, no show, just him. But the second he stepped through those doors, the whole dealership changed. The receptionist stopped typing. The other salesmen looked up from their desks. Even the people waiting in chairs turned to see who just came in. Because even if you didn't know his name, you knew of him. You'd seen him on TV. You'd heard people talk about how he changed basketball, how he made three-pointers look easy when no one else could hit them, how he won championships with the Golden State Warriors, and became a global icon. And now here he was, in this dealership, on an ordinary day. He looked around, spotted his dad near the exit, and gave him a small smile. Then he walked straight over to the salesman, the same one who had laughed at Dell minutes earlier. Now standing face to face, Stephen held out his hand. "Hey," he said, friendly as ever. "I hear you've got something my dad wants." The salesman shook his hand automatically, but his face told the whole story. Shock, panic, realization. This wasn't just some random customer's son. This was Stephen Curry, two-time MVP, three-time NBA champion, one of the most famous athletes in the world, and he was standing right in front of him. The salesman opened his mouth, tried to say something, nothing came out. Stephen didn't smirk, he didn't look angry, he just stood there calm, waiting. Finally the salesman managed to speak. "Oh, yeah, of course, let me get that for you." He turned quickly, almost stumbling, and rushed off toward the back. Dell watched it all unfold, arms crossed, a small smile playing on his lips. Stephen looked at him, and shrugged. "I figured we should finish what you started." Then he turned back toward the lot, scanning the rows of cars. "This is the one you wanted, right?" Dell nodded. "It's a good ride," he said. "Smooth, reliable. I like it." Stephen smiled. "Then let's take a look." They walked outside together, father and son, while the dealership scrambled behind them. Salespeople whispered. Managers peeked out from offices. Cameras came out. Phones held low, trying not to be noticed. Everyone knew they were witnessing something big, something unexpected. And the best part, it was only just beginning. Stephen Curry didn't start off as the golden boy of basketball. He wasn't the tallest. He wasn't the strongest. And when he was younger, a lot of people, coaches, scouts, even fans, thought he just didn't have what it took to make it in the NBA. But Stephen believed in himself, even when no one else did. He grew up watching his dad play. He saw how hard Dell worked, how he stayed humble, and how he never let anyone define him by what they saw on the surface. That stuck with Stephen. So when he went to college at Davidson, he made a name for himself, not by dunking or showing off, but by hitting shots no one else could. He led his team deep into the NCAA tournament, beating teams that were supposed to be better than them. People started paying attention. Then came the NBA draft. Most teams passed on him. Some said he was too small, too skinny, not built for the pros. But the Golden State Warriors saw something different. They saw heart, they saw skill, they saw potential, and they took a chance. It didn't take long for Stephen to prove them right. He started hitting threes from places no one had ever seen before. He moved fast. He played smart. And soon, he wasn't just making shots, he was changing the game. 2 MVPs, 3 championships, countless records broken. Now he was one of the most respected players in the league. But through it all, he never forgot where he came from, or who helped him get there. That's why when he walked into that dealership, he wasn't trying to flex or show off. He was just being a son. helping his dad, making sure he got what he wanted, because Stephen knew what it felt like to be overlooked, to be underestimated, to have someone look at you and think you don't belong. And he also knew how powerful it was when you proved them wrong. Back at the dealership, the salesman returned, holding a folder and trying to keep his composure. "This is the car," he said, voice a little shaky. "It's in great condition, very clean." Stephen nodded. "Can we take a look inside?" "Of course," the salesman said quickly. "Right this way." They followed him out to the lot, where the car sat under the bright afternoon sun. Stephen opened the driver's door, leaned in, checked the seats, the dashboard, the steering wheel. Dell stood nearby, arms crossed again, watching quietly. Stephen turned to him. "What do you think?" Dell walked over, ran his hand along the side of the car. "It's just like I remember," he said. "Still rides smooth." Stephen smiled. "Then maybe we should take it for a spin." The salesman looked nervous. "Oh, sure. Of course, let me get the keys." He hurried off again. Stephen turned to his dad. "You know, if you want it, I'll help you get it." Dell shook his head. "I can handle it," he said. "I just wanted to see if they'd treat me like any other customer." Stephen nodded slowly. "They didn't," he said. "But now they will." Behind them, the dealership buzzed with quiet excitement. People whispered. Phones recorded. Some employees tried to act normal, but you could feel the energy. Something big was happening, and no one wanted to miss it. The salesman returned, keys in hand, trying to keep his cool. "All right," he said, handing the keys over. "Let's take it out." Stephen took them without a word, and opened the driver's side door. Dell walked around to the passenger side, and got in. The dealership staff gathered near the front, watching closely. A few people outside stopped what they were doing to see what was happening. This wasn't just a test drive anymore. It was an event. Stephen started the car. It purred to life. Smooth, quiet, powerful. He looked over at his dad. "You good?" Dell nodded. "Let's go." Stephen pulled out slowly, driving around the lot once before heading onto the street. As they drove, Dell leaned back in the seat, eyes scanning the dashboard. "Feels like home," he said. Stephen smiled. "I remember when you used to drive this thing everywhere." Dell chuckled. "It treated me right, never left me stranded, always got me where I needed to be." Stephen glanced at him. "So why come back for it?" Dell thought for a second. "Because some things don't need to change," he said. "Some things are built to last." Stephen nodded. They drove in silence for a bit, the city passing by outside the windows. Then Stephen spoke again. "You ever get tired of it?" "Of what?" Dell asked. "People not seeing you for who you really are." Dell gave a small smile. "All the time," he said. "But that's just life. People judge first, ask questions later." Stephen didn't say anything for a moment. Then he pulled the car over near a quiet street, turned off the engine, looked at his dad. "We should make sure they know who you are," he said. Dell raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Stephen reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and opened Instagram.
Here.
Then he hit record.
Just like that.
No setup, no script, just him, standing beside the car, holding the phone up. "Hey everyone," he said, casually. "I'm out here with my dad. We're looking at a car he used to have." He turned the camera toward Dell. "This is Dell Curry," Stephen said. "My dad, former NBA player, great shooter, even better man." Dell laughed. "Cut it out," he said. But he was smiling. Stephen kept going. "He taught me everything I know, on and off the court. And today we came in looking for this car. And let's just say, not everyone knew who he was." He paused. "But now they do." Then he lowered the phone, stopped recording, and just like that, the video was live. Within seconds comments started pouring in.
Wait, is that Dell?
Stephen bringing the dad energy. "This is the best thing I've seen all day. That poor salesman probably wants to disappear RN." Back at the dealership, phones lit up. Employees scrambled to check what was happening. One of them read the caption out loud. "Meet the real legend. Took me years to get here."
He was already there.
The salesman stood frozen at his desk, staring at the screen, his face turned red, not from anger, from realization. He had made a mistake, a big one, and now the whole world was watching. Back at the dealership, the energy had completely changed. What was once a quiet Tuesday afternoon turned into something out of a movie. People crowded near the front window, watching for any sign of Stephen and Dell's return. Phones were still recording. Employees whispered to each other, trying to make sense of what just happened. The manager came out of his office, looking nervous. He walked straight over to the salesman, who had laughed earlier. "What exactly went down?"
he asked, voice low.
The salesman swallowed hard. "I didn't know who he was," he said quickly. "I mean, I knew the name, but I didn't think you laughed at him." The manager cut in. "It wasn't like that." The salesman tried to explain. "He just asked for a car. I didn't expect. I thought maybe he was confused." The manager shook his head. Stephen Curry just posted a video with his dad on Instagram. A video where he introduced the world to Dell Curry. And we're the reason it happened. He looked around. This dealership is about to go viral. And he was right. Because within minutes, the video had thousands of comments, hundreds of shares, dozens of news outlets picked it up. Stephen Curry shows up to help his dad. After salesman underestimates him. Dad moment goes viral. As Stephen Curry stands up for Dell. Salesman laughs at Dell Curry. Then Stephen arrives and changes everything. Back outside, Stephen and Dell pulled into the lot again. As soon as they got out of the car, people started clapping, not loudly, not in a staged way, just genuine, like they understood what had just happened. Stephen looked at his dad. "You good?" he asked. Dell nodded.
Yeah, he said.
"Actually, yeah." Stephen smiled. Then he turned toward the dealership, walked inside. The room fell silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Stephen looked around, then directly at the salesman. "Hey," he said, calmly, "let's get this car ready." The salesman blinked. "You want to buy it?" Stephen nodded. "For my dad," he said. "It looks like it still fits him." The salesman hesitated. "But he can get a better deal. We have newer models, higher-end ones." Stephen gave a small smile. "That's not what this is about," he said. The manager stepped forward. "We'll take care of everything," he said, quickly. "No charge." Stephen raised an eyebrow. "No," he said. "We're paying." The manager looked surprised. Stephen turned to Dell. "You always said you don't take handouts." Dell chuckled. "That's right." Stephen looked back at the manager. "We do this right. No discounts, no favors, just fair treatment." The manager nodded slowly. "Of course. Absolutely." Then he turned to the salesman.
"You handle it."
The salesman swallowed hard. "Yes, sir," he said. Stephen and Dell sat down at the front desk, while paperwork began. As they waited, Dell leaned back in his chair. "You didn't have to do all this," he said, quietly. Stephen looked at him. "I wanted to,"
he said.
"You've done everything for me. This is the least I could do." Dell smiled. "Still, you handled it well." Stephen shrugged. "Just following your example," he said. "Stay calm. Stay respectful. Let your actions speak louder than words." Outside, the crowd had grown. Reporters showed up. Fans stood by the gates, hoping to catch a glimpse.